Over 25 years since its creation, the Pokemon series has stayed the same with its traditional formula that plenty of people have come to accept. This formula has rarely had any noticeable change throughout the time, facing lots of fan criticism about the stagnant form the games have struggled to break from since the franchise inception. However, this all changed with the Pokemon Day presentation that occurred in 2021, with the anticipated Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl being announced, which were faithful remakes of the originals being developed by Ilka Inc. and directed by its own Yuichi Ueda, who didn't direct anything notable beforehand. It was also being co-directed by Junichi Masuda, a historical yet controversial mainstay, director, producer, and composer throughout the franchise's entire life. But right after the remakes were announced, the biggest curveball in terms of innovation and fan expectations were revealed. A new title set in the past of the original Pokemon Diamond and Pearl called Pokemon Legends Arceus, which promised new action elements fused into the traditional main mechanics of the good old formula. It seemed to take place in a segmented type of open world to explore, and it was all being directed by Kazumasa Iwao, the director of the controversial third versions Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Well, almost a year after it was initially announced, it finally released to certain acclaim, with it being deemed one of the best Pokemon games since the 2D era to some, only with some minor downsides such as the low quality visuals and textures. What made Legends so good, yet so different? What does it mean for the near future? Let's begin. In the typical Pokemon experience that you would have before Legends Arceus, the traditional formula usually had you go through 8 gyms, a Pokemon League with a champion, the main legendary, having the only interaction with wild Pokemon being you running into them, fight, catch, repeat. And to be fair, it did work for quite a while. But I think the main issue is that Game Freak got too comfortable with using the same old formula, which eventually came and hit them in the face with Generation 8. This is where Legends Arceus introduces itself. Since it's essentially a prequel to the original Diamond and Pearl, there are no regular trainer battles, there aren't any kind of gyms, and there is no Pokemon League. Instead, you face off with 4 different nobles, which act as the replacement to gyms, or in this case, I'll call them progression bosses. They are powerful Pokemon that are basically just the chosen ones of Arceus itself, and they all have different attacks and patterns to their own. After you beat one of them, you receive one of Arceus' plates, which can be used to change its typing form later down the line. Nobles are definitely a much cooler and more unique form of progression boss, as opposed to gym leaders or trial captains. And I hope Game Freak does more type of bosses like these in the future. As for the Pokemon League, there is genuinely no replacement to be found in this game. Instead, you get kicked out of the village because they think you are the cause of the events happening at the very moment, and you are basically sent out on a world-ending adventure to the peak of Mount Coronet to see what's going on. That is where you fight the pre-credits boss, which in this case is Dialga's or Palkia's new form depending on which clan you chose to be a part of. I really think that getting rid of the League is a bold move, and I want future titles to not include it as well because I think it's a tired concept that they've just used too much, and they already did it so well with Pokemon Sword and Shield. As for the main legendary of the game, which is Arceus, you don't actually fight it until you capture every other Pokemon there is in the game. As I've said before, the legendary you fight before the credits roll is either Dialga's or Palkia's new form. I think this is something they could only do with Arceus because of its status as a Pokemon, but I think it'd be interesting if they did something like this again in a future title, where you can only capture the main legendary after you capture all the other Pokemon in the game, or perhaps a different objective. As for capturing Pokemon and battling them, a lot has changed in terms of when you are not inside of a battle, but not so much when actually inside, at least in my opinion. When battling, you now have access to 2 move styles. One is called Strong Style, which makes it move stronger but also slows down your Pokemon by maybe a single turn, while Agile Style makes a move lower in damage but makes your Pokemon faster. Stats have been changed a good bit in comparison to previous games. Some are stronger and some are weaker. That's pretty much what a balance change does. In terms of the exterior of battles, you can now receive damage from wild Pokemon, you can trick shot Pokeballs at wild Pokemon, You don't have to engage in battle with wild Pokemon, you can get knocked out by wild Pokemon, and you could sneak up on them. It doesn't seem like much, but the differences do add up quite a bit in the long run, and these new mechanics should 100% be a continual iteration in future titles, especially in the upcoming Generation 9 games. Comparing the differences and changes to every other previous title in the franchise, this definitely comes ahead as one of the most innovative in many ways, and I only really scratched the surface. There are plenty more features and mechanics in the game that are either new or changed completely for previous titles to be way better. These differences are what make the game so much better and good to so many fans, despite its few shortcomings. Even if you think it's just decent, or even dislike it, you have to admit that Game Freak finally did something, tried, and made a different kind of experience in the long run. But it doesn't even seem like the game is done, even with the upcoming Generation 9 games coming later in 2022. What does the latest update add to the game, and what could it mean for the coming months? In the Pokemon Day 2022 presentation, it was announced that a free software update would be available for Legends Arceus sometime after the presentation ends, and that the update would be called Daybreak. It implemented harder versions of mass outbreaks titled Massive Mass Outbreaks that were comprised completely of just alpha Pokemon. It also added new regular outbreaks for Pokemon that originally weren't a part of the system. As well, it added story content relating to the new Mass Outbreak feature, including a ton of new requests and side requests. Lastly, it adds an extra feature to Photo Mode, harder rematches at Ingo's Battleground, and a new battle facility-like feature that puts you against the legendaries and mythicals you would find in the Hisui region. But the update being named at all implies that there could be even more updates like this, added to the game in the near future. Could we possibly see more free updates like this one, or are we eventually going to see a fully fledged paid update? Nobody knows what Game Freak has planned for it. Anyways, it seems most people agree that this update is a good addition, but some argue that it just wasn't enough for them even though it was free. Hopefully they will do more updates like this for older games in the future, as it would help add stuff to already existing features to the game, as well as more stuff to do for the player. So what does Legends mean for the future, and how much of it could we possibly see of it in the upcoming titles? Legends Arceus does a lot of change for the formula we've all known before, but how much does it mean for the future? Well, as we can see already with the next set of games for the 9th generation, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, those games are completely open world as opposed to segmented areas like in Legends. That's already a big step up from Legends in a brief period of time, and it makes me hopeful that the series can continue stepping up and innovating with each new title that releases. I hope a lot of what's introduced in Legends remains in the next games, and I don't think that there is any going back to the old formula. We have officially entered a new era of the franchise, as the Legends marketing said. I believe any going back will lead into backlash, because why would you go from making something like Legends to just making something like Sword and Shield again? That would be completely stupid. Game Freak has hit the nail in the coffin in a fantastic way, but they better keep the train rolling. Now, what are certain things I think they should change so they can get the most benefit out of this? Please, and I mean please, quit having these extremely strict deadlines that usually end up in the games feeling incomplete, or at least make the game's length scale to how much time they've had in the oven. And please make better directorial choices. That sums up my thoughts on Pokemon Legends Arceus and ends the opinion trilogy that started with one video back in 2020. For now. There will always be a new game, and I think making videos on them won't stop, but those will not be a part of the opinion series I've set up. Videos like the one I released back in February 2022 and the one I released in 2020 will no longer be created. Instead, they'll be like this, or just a review. Anyways, that's about it. See ya.